All right. We are group 10 and our case study is on China's Great Firewall, the ethical dilemma of internet censorship. I'm Sophia DeFetti.
I'm Elijah Garrett.
I'm Jackson Ross.
I'm Kristen Samuels.
And my name is Bartosz Żukowski. So to start off our case study, we have been assigned with the Great Chinese Firewall. And the Great Chinese Firewall was established in 1998, which has a home to over 700 million internet users from a population of over 1.4 billion people. And while China is a global leader in e-commerce, many people have argued against the Chinese government having a strict control over what people can browse and view online. For example, China has a multitude of different versions of applications and sites from America. For example, Baidu instead of Google, Weibo instead of Twitter, WeChat instead of Facebook, and Youku instead of YouTube, which are basically like more strictly censored versions of the same application. And a recent study has showed that less than 3% of Chinese internet users have actually acquired a VPN service in order to breach these Chinese firewalls to access these foreign sites that the government doesn't want them to have access to, which leads to the ethical dilemma of whether or not government should have the access to control the citizens of the country, and whether or not they should have this control of what they can or can't see online.
Next, we have updates and developments. On September 11, 2025, 500 gigabytes of data were leaked from the Great Chinese Firewall. And this leak appeared to be fully built systems for their deep packet inspections and case modules that would reference the identities of the exact tools they used in order to create this firewall. That gave a lot of the hackers a lot of information that China really couldn't give up. The researchers have now begun to comb through the source codes, but there's so much that's really under-evaluated, so they're not sure. And they're arguing that the presence of the build logs and notes could help identify the levels that were weak, all the protocols that were failing and easily hacked. And it would, yeah. So the files appear to originate from Geej Network, a company that's been long linked to Feng Beijing. And Feng Beijing was known as the father of this firewall. He was one of the main developers who created the entire thing and had more hands-on than anybody else. And he's known in Asia to be one of the greatest computer scientists of today. Next, we'll have Sophia with ethical dilemmas.
All right. So some ethical dilemmas include how this firewall blocks about 25% of not just Chinese, but also English websites. So this makes news websites inaccessible in China. So whatever news that the US or foreign countries post online, China cannot see any of that. We also have, as Bart mentioned before, VPNs. So these are private servers that people can use to bypass the firewall restrictions. But these VPNs are also, these just exist because of the Chinese Communist Party. So more recently, a lot of these VPNs have been shutting down because of how popular they've gotten, for these citizens to access, content and social media that they normally can't. I also want to touch on the Golden Shield project. So this is the internet surveillance and content control system, and it's run by government workers that spin any debate that might be in opposition to the government, and they twist it and make it in favor of the government stance. So this basically just blocks all content that the government deems undesirable. Yeah.
Next, we have our group's perspective. We all together felt like the national security level that they scale is widely unethical. We think it violates their human rights and creates this unequal line of this universal digital world that we're all living in to this day. And we feel like restricting their level, which is around 25%, creates this narrative that they're able to push that they fully control. They're deciding what they see when they see it and what's legal and not. And we feel like that they could still have a high security control without taking all that censorship, just being blank. They could choose better what it was and just instead of it being everything and all. And next we'll have Jackson.
When we think about China's Great Firewall, we have to take a step back and look beyond technology. It's really about deeper ethical issues. The first question, should people have absolute access to information, even if it conflicts with government policies? This gets to the heart of individual rights versus state control. The second question, does limiting online access protect cultural values, or does it unjustly suppress perspectives? This question forces us to consider whether censorship is really even justified. Number three, do other countries have a responsibility to pressure governments into imposing internet censorship? They don't really even have easy answers, but they help us explore the ethical dimensions of censorship and how it shapes the global digital freedom. Next is questions from the case.
So on this side, we'll be talking about the 3 questions about the China's Great Firewall from our textbook. The first question is, by 2024, billions of more people will be online, many in censored countries. What's a better way to manage the internet than China's strict model? So a better model would be focusing on blocking truly harmful content, such as child exploitation or clear threats of violence. And at the same time, people should still be allowed to discuss their political and religious beliefs so that they can express it freely. Instead of the government having total control, there could be an independent review board to make sure that the rules are fair and not being abused. By having a system like this, we can balance safety and freedom for the users. The second question is, what if US tech companies like Facebook or YouTube started censoring users just to get into China's market? How might people react, and what should companies think about? So if platforms like Facebook and YouTube started to censor their users, they're going to lose their trust in them. People might stop using the platforms and resort to alternatives that respect their free expression. For companies, it should be about the long-term reputation that they have with their customers, and if they compromise it, they can lose credibility worldwide. The third question is, are there any limits on free speech online that you think are acceptable or necessary? We believe that free speech with limits are acceptable, including content that directly promotes violence or hate speech should be not allowed because it can cause real harm to individuals, and limits that should be clearly defined and applied just make it better for everyone to understand the rules. Acceptable limits are about preventing physical harm and not controlling opinions. So overall, our answers show that while some regulation online is necessary for safety, governments and companies should avoid this kind of extreme censorship we see with the Great Firewall. And so to wrap everything up, China's Great Firewall is more than just technology. It represents the bigger ethical conflict between government control and individual freedom. We've looked at how censorship works, the ethical dilemmas it raises, and the updates that it shows, just how far the system goes in shaping what people can and can't access. Ultimately, the Great Firewall challenges us to think about what digital ethics should look like in our global society. Thank you guys for listening to our group.
Thank you.
All right.